Beneath the dust and stars, the mining drill whirred to a halt as Rowan Mercer wiped sweat from his brow. 6 hours into his shift at Helios mining outpost, and he'd struck something unusual. Not the precious stellarium the company sought, but something that reflected his headlamp differently, crystalline and unnatural. "I've hit an anomaly in Sector 7, he reported. Brushing away loose soil from what appeared to be a smooth, translucent surface, the radio crackled. "Proceed with extraction, Mercer. Company protocol." But as more dirt fell away, Rowan's breath caught. Behind the crystal barrier was a woman, eyes closed as if sleeping. Her skin had an otherworldly luminescence, hair floating around her face, as though suspended in liquid, though the chamber was dry. Controlled, there's someone, he stopped himself. In the 3 years he'd worked for Helios Corporation, he'd witnessed enough to know when to keep quiet. Disregard. False alarm. Something told him to keep this discovery to himself. The mining colony on Prospernine was technically under Federation law, but Baron Voss, who owned Helios, operated with impunity in this remote corner of the galaxy. Rowan worked quietly, using his tools to carefully crack the crystal casing. When the final piece broke away, the woman's eyes snapped open, deep, violet, alert, and afraid. "It's okay," he whispered, extending a hand. "I'm not going to hurt you." She recoiled, glancing around the narrow tunnel. "Where am I? How long has it been?" "You're in Helios mine. I don't know how you got here, or how long." "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Emmeline?" "I think—" "Yes, Emmeline." As she stepped from the chamber, the lights in Rowan's equipment flickered, then grew brighter. She noticed his surprise and closed her eyes, concentrating. The lights dimmed to normal. "You did that?" he asked. "Energy fields respond to me. That's why they kept me. ... She trailed off, suddenly alert. "We need to leave. He'll know I'm awake now." "Who?" "Baron Voss. He calls me his property." "His battery?" Her voice trembled. "Please." Alarms began blaring throughout the mine. Rowan didn't hesitate. "This way." He led her through maintenance tunnels toward the surface, using his access card to bypass security. As they emerged into the harsh daylight of Prospernine, Emmeline squinted, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "How long were you down there?" Rowan asked, pulling her toward the workers' transport vehicles. I don't know." "Years. Maybe." Time felt ... suspended. They reached Rowan's personal transport, a beat-up terrain crawler he'd rebuilt himself. "Get in." As they sped away from the facility, gunshots echoed behind them. In the rearview display, Rowan saw the Baron's security forces emerging, led by a tall man in an impeccable suit, despite the planet's dust and heat. "That's him," Emmeline whispered, her fingers digging into the seat. Rowan accelerated across the barren landscape, dust clouds billowing behind them. "Why does he want you so badly?" She held up her hand, and small arcs of energy danced between her fingers. "I can channel raw energy. Power systems, enhanced technology. He used me to amplify his mining operations, kept me in stasis between uses." Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of trust. "I know someone who might help us get off planet," Rowan said. "If you're willing to trust me." Emmeline watched the mining facility recede into the distance. "I have no choice but to trust you. You're the first person who's seen me as human in a very long time." Flight across the Badlands, the terrain crawler rattled across the cracked earth of Prospernine's Badlands, kicking up rust-colored dust in its wake. Rowan kept his eyes on the horizon, occasionally glancing at the scanner for signs of pursuit. "We should reach the outpost by nightfall," he told Emmeline, who sat with her knees pulled to her chest, watching the desolate landscape with wonder. "I never thought I'd see the surface again," she said softly. "Even the dust is beautiful when you've been in darkness." Rowan smiled. "Most folks here would disagree with you on that. How did you end up here? You don't seem like someone who belongs in a place like this." Rowan's hands tightened on the controls. "Former Federation pilot, made some enemies, needed to disappear. Mining colonies don't ask questions." The scanner beeped suddenly, and Rowan swore under his breath. "We've got company." Aerial transport, coming in fast. He veered off the main route, plunging the crawler into a maze of rock formations. The vehicle bounced violently as Emmeline gripped the dashboard. "Can I help?" she asked. "I might be able to disrupt their scanners," Rowan nodded. "Worth a try. Just don't fry our systems in the process." Emmeline closed her eyes, extending her hands. The air around her fingertips shimmered, and the crawler's lights flickered momentarily. In the distance, the pursuing craft wobbled in the air before veering off course. "It should buy us time," she said, her voice strained. "But I'm still weak from the stasis." As dusk fell, they approached a cluster of lights nestled against a cliff-face waypoint station. A trading post, catering to smugglers and those looking to avoid official channels. "My friend Talia runs shipments from here," Rowan explained. "If anyone can get us off-planet undetected, it's her." They left the crawler hidden among the rocks and approached on foot. The station was a hodgepodge of prefabricated units and repurposed ship parts. Music and voices spilling from its center. Inside a smoky cantina, they found Talia Blackwood, her feet propped on a table as she negotiated with a client. She spotted Rowan and excused herself, her expression a mixture of surprise and concern. "6 months of silence and now you show up with trouble on your heels?" she remarked, embracing him briefly. Her eyes shifted to Emmeline. "And who's this?" "Someone who needs passage off-planet." Quietly, Talia studied Emmeline, noting her unusual eyes. "Baron Voss's men were asking questions an hour ago. That have anything to do with you too?" Emmeline stepped forward. "I'm what they're looking for. I was his prisoner." Talia whistled low. "That's a dangerous enemy to make." She glanced between them, her expression softening. "But I owe Rowan my life twice over. My ship leaves at dawn B on it." That night, they sheltered in Talia's private quarters. As Rowan kept watch by the window, Emmeline touched his arm gently. "IQ," she whispered. "You've risked everything for a stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. When her fingers entwined with his, something electric passed between them, literal sparks dancing where their skin touched. Emmeline looked startled, then laughed softly. "Sorry, my abilities are tied to my emotions." And right now, their faces were close now, breaths mingling. Rowan hesitated, then leaned forward, his lips meeting hers. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened as Emmeline responded, her body arching toward his when they separated. The room's lights had brightened considerably. "That's going to be a tell," Rowan joked softly. A pounding at the door interrupted them. Talia burst in, her expression urgent. "I had time to go." "Voss's ships just entered orbit. If we're leaving, it has to be now." As they raced toward the landing pad, explosions lit up the night sky. Baron Voss wasn't just sending mercenaries, he was bombing the entire outpost to find them. Sanctuary in the stars. Talia's ship, the Nighthawk, broke atmosphere with a shuddering roar, Baron Voss's fighters in close pursuit. Inside the cramped cockpit, Rowan gripped the co-pilot's controls, his former training returning as he and Talia worked in seamless coordination. "We need more speed," Talia shouted over the wailing proximity alarms. In the jump seat behind them, Emmeline placed her hands on the ship's console. "Let me help," she said, closing her eyes in concentration. Beneath her touch, the ship's engines surged with unexpected power, throwing them all back against their seats as the Nighthawk leapt forward, stars blurring into streaks. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up," Talia gasped, inputting the jump coordinates, when they finally evaded their pursuers and entered hyperspace. Talia turned to regard Emmeline with newfound respect. "That was impressive, and extremely useful in my line of work." "I'm not a tool," Emmeline replied quietly, but without anger. Rowan squeezed her hand. "No, you're not, and you never will be again." They emerged from hyperspace 3 days later near Haven, a space station built into a hollowed-out asteroid on the edge of Federation space. Its neutral status and labyrinthine structure made it ideal for those seeking anonymity. As they docked, Talia outlined her plan. "I've got contacts here who can help us trace Emmeline's origins. Meanwhile, You two lie low. I've arranged quarters in the residential ring. Their temporary home was small, but private, a single room with basic amenities. As the door closed behind them, the reality of their situation settled in. They were alone, fugitives, with only each other to rely on. We barely know each other, Emmeline said softly, yet I feel... She trailed off. Rowan approached her slowly. I feel it too. When they kissed this time, the lights didn't merely brighten, they pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats. Clothes were discarded, hands exploring with growing urgency. Emmeline's skin glowed faintly in the dimness, her touch sending literal currents of pleasure through Rowan's body. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets, Emmeline traced patterns on his chest. When I was imprisoned, I dreamed of stars, of freedom. I never dreamed of this, of finding someone. I was lost before I found you, Rowan admitted. Just going through motions, surviving but not living. Days passed as they waited for Talia's information network to yield results. They explored Haven together, Emmeline marveling at the diversity of life forms and cultures. In quiet moments, they shared their past, Rowan's disgrace from the Federation fleet after refusing orders that would have killed civilians. Emmeline's fragmented memories of scientists and laboratories before Baron Voss acquired her, a week into their stay. Talia brought news. I found something. Records of a research facility on Ascendant Prime that was conducting experiments in human enhancement. The facility was supposedly destroyed 15 years ago, but some of the scientists continued their work. Under Baron Voss's protection, projected images of similar subjects saw with distinctive, violet eyes like Emmeline's were part of something called Project Lumina. There were others like you, but most records indicate they didn't survive the procedures. Emmeline stared at the faces so similar to her own, her expression, a mixture of horror and longing. I had sisters? Before they could process this information, alarms blared throughout the station. Talia's communication device buzzed. Voss found us. His ships are requesting emergency docking, claiming to be in pursuit of dangerous fugitives. Haven has strict neutrality laws, Rowan protested. Talia's expression darkened. Money overrides laws out here. We need to move. Now. As they hurried toward the docking bay where the Nighthawk waited, Rowan pulled Emmeline close. Whatever happens, we face it together. I'm not letting you go. She pressed her forehead to his. Neither am I. The truth unbound. Baron Voss's forces swept through Haven like a plague, methodically sealing off sections and conducting searches. The station's administration, swayed by bribes or threats, provided limited resistance. Rowan, Emmeline, and Talia navigated the maintenance corridors, avoiding patrols as they made their way toward the lower docks where the Nighthawk waited. They paused at an intersection, checking the security feed on Talia's portable scanner. There's a blockade at every major exit, Talia whispered. We need a diversion. Emmeline's expression hardened with resolve. I can provide one. She pressed her palm against a nearby power junction, closing her eyes. Throughout the station, lights flickered and died, plunging sectors into darkness. Emergency power only, she explained. It won't last long. They moved swiftly through the chaos, taking advantage of the confusion. At a final checkpoint, they encountered a squad of Voss's mercenaries. Rowan engaged the first two with practiced efficiency, his mining tools repurposed as weapons. Talia held her own. But as they neared the docking bay, a shot caught her in the shoulder. She stumbled, cursing through gritted teeth. Go, she urged them. Get to the ship. I'll hold them off. We're not leaving you, Rowan insisted. A cold voice interrupted them. Indeed you're not. Baron Voss stood in the corridor, flanked by guards. Tall and aristocratic, with implants visible beneath his translucent skin, he smiled without warmth. My property has led me on quite the chase. I belong to no one, Emmeline said, her voice steady despite her fear. We're created, not born, Voss replied. Your existence has purpose to serve as the perfect conduit for energy manipulation. Do you know how much I invested to acquire you after the project was shut down? How many competitors I eliminated? As he spoke, Emmeline felt something unlock in her mind, memories flooding back. Labs, tests, pain, and others like her, connected through a shared consciousness, until one by one, they faded. You killed them, she whispered. My sisters. You drained them until nothing remained. Inefficient models, Voss dismissed. You were the only one who could sustain the energy load indefinitely. A perfect battery. Rowan stepped in front of her protectively. She's a person, not a thing. What? A distinction without meaning, Voss replied. Guards, secure my property. Kill the others. Time seemed to slow. As the guards raised their weapons, Emmeline felt something break free within her, the full extent of her abilities. It's no longer constrained by fear or confusion. Energy surged through her, radiating outward in visible waves. The guards' weapons short-circuited in their hands. Implants failing painfully, in the momentary distraction, Talia fired at the ceiling, causing a structural collapse that separated them from Voss and his men. Run, she shouted. They reached the Nighthawk, but as the engines fired up, more of Voss's forces converged on the bay. Talia, weakened from blood loss, struggled at the controls. Go, she told them, slumping in the pilot's seat. Take the escape pod. I'll create a diversion, Talia Rowan began. Don't argue, you stubborn fool. Someone needs to draw them away from you too. Her expression softened. What you have, it's worth protecting. Now go. With anguish they complied, watching through the pod's viewport as the Nighthawk launched, drawing Voss's ships in pursuit while their pod drifted away unnoticed in the opposite direction. As Haven receded in the distance, Emmeline curled into Rowan's embrace, tears streaming down her face. She sacrificed herself for us, she whispered. Rowan held her tightly. Then we make sure it wasn't in vain. In the pod's dim light, they charted a course toward Ascendant Prime, toward answers, perhaps a way to end Baron Voss's pursuit once and for all. Freedom's price. The escape pod drifted for 3 days before being picked up by a salvage vessel captained by an old acquaintance of Talia's, who honored their connection by providing safe passage to Ascendant Prime. During the journey, Emmeline practiced controlling her abilities, growing stronger each day. I can feel more now, she explained to Rowan as they sat together in their small cabin. Not just energy fields, but connections patterns that were always there but I couldn't see before. Do you think there are others like you still alive? Rowan asked. Yes, she answered without hesitation. Faint like echoes, but present. And they're all at Voss's main facility on his private moon. I can sense them. Upon reaching Ascendant Prime, they discovered the ruins of the original research facility. Among the abandoned data archives, Emmeline found the truth of her creation. She and her sisters were designed to harness planetary energy fields, a power that could provide unlimited clean energy or, in the wrong hands, become a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Voss doesn't just want me as a battery, she realized. He's building something that requires all of us. Something terrible. Their research also revealed that Talia had survived and was being held at Voss's fortress. With this knowledge, they formulated a desperate plan. Using the credentials of a supply ship, they approached Voss's private moon. Emmeline cloaked their energy signature, making them appear as nothing more than routine cargo delivery. Once docked, they moved through the fortress, Emmeline's enhanced senses guiding them past security systems. They found Talia in a holding cell, injured but alive. You idiots, she greeted them weakly. You were supposed to escape. We don't leave family behind, Rowan replied, helping her to her feet as they made their way deeper into the facility. Emmeline sensed her kin, 5 others like her, connected to a massive machine at the fortress's core. They were barely conscious, their energy being siphoned continuously. Baron Voss was waiting in the central chamber, unsurprised by their arrival. I knew you would come, he told Emmeline. Your connection to the others would draw you here eventually. Release them, she demanded. Impossible. The conduit requires all Lumina subjects to function. Once activated, it will allow me to control energy production across entire systems. Imagine the power, political, economic, military. Those who control energy control everything. And we're just batteries to you, Emmeline said, her voice rising. Living beings with thoughts and feelings and dreams, manufactured beings, Voss corrected, created for a purpose you're now fulfilling. As guards surrounded them, Rowan met Emmeline's eyes. A silent communication passed between them, trust, love, and determination. Now. Rowan shouted. Emmeline reached out, not with her hands but with her consciousness, connecting with her imprisoned sisters. For the first time, they united their abilities willingly, creating a surge that overwhelmed the conduit's safeguards. Alarms blared as energy arced through the chamber. Baron Voss screamed orders as his implants malfunctioned, the technology he'd relied on failing catastrophically. The fortress began to shake, structural integrity compromised by the massive energy fluctuations. We need to get them out, Emmeline told Rowan. Indicating her sisters still connected to the machine, together with Talia, they worked quickly to disconnect the imprisoned luminous subjects. As the last one was freed, Emmeline directed the built-up energy outward, away from the residential areas of the moon colony and into Voss's weapon systems, which detonated in a chain reaction. They escaped on a maintenance vessel, moments before the fortress collapsed. As they broke orbit, Emmeline stood at the viewport with her newly freed sisters, watching as Baron Voss's empire of exploitation crumbled. Months later, on a remote world beyond Federation space, Rowan and Emmeline stood on the porch of their modest home. Nearby, a small community had formed the other Lumina survivors and Talia, who decided to retire from smuggling to help establish their sanctuary. Do you ever regret it? Rowan asked, his arm around Emmeline's waist. Finding me in that mine. She smiled, looking out at the sunset, illuminating their new beginning. How could I regret finding freedom? Finding love? Energy danced between their intertwined fingers, no longer a reminder of captivity, but a celebration of connection. No more running, Rowan said softly. Emmeline turned in his arms, violet eyes meeting his. No more hiding, she agreed, and kissed him as the stars began to appear above their home.